Hello, this is Vijay Rana from IndiaBriefings.com. I met one of India's most prominent painters, Syed Haider Raza, at the Nehru Centre in London in May 2005. I began by asking what kind of challenges he faced when he arrived in Mumbai in 1943.
I've lived it since 1943 when I came as a young student in Bombay. I have lived the 9 years in Bombay, which was one of the most important art centre apart from Calcutta for the arts, contemporary arts. We had younger painters, we had the art school, we had exhibitions, and some important Indian and foreign art critics and lovers. These 8 years changed my life. The problem was that we were in a confusion between the European realism concept of art seen by the retina, by the eyes, and the extraordinary imaginative concept of Indian culture, where it's not the third dimension that is important. It's not the reality seen by the retina which is important. It's imagination, it's concept of nature as Prakriti, and many other things which are important. And the third dimension was not important. The expression was important. The idea was important. The bhav, the feeling was important. So there was a confusion in the mind of innumerable artists, and as young painters we searched. But very quickly we got together. I met there Francis Newton Sousa, I met there Makbul Fida Hussain, Gaitonde, Ara, Bakre, and many other artists like Parsikar, Reddy, and we started asking questions, we started looking at things, discussions, and we tried to understand what is Oriental concept and what is modern art. I couldn't get very much of a reply to these questions in Bombay, even if I started guessing and seeing clearly. I decided to come to Paris, and in 1950 I came to Paris, but I kept my relations with Indian painters and Indian painting and with the country.
Going back to the Bombay days, like say when you were setting up this progressive artist group, what was the vision? You know, you describe, you say confusion, but what were you looking, say 10 years, 20 years or 50 years later, what is going to happen? What was the vision at that time?
Well, I can give you very precisely the problems that we had at that time and how we saw it. I said that we had to find out what exactly is modern art. We used to call it contemporary painting, modern art. There was modern art of Occident, there was modern art, the French art, there was modern art that was being practiced in America. Now, Clive Batt wrote a book, Significant Form, which insisted on the importance of formal values in a painting, apart from theme and apart from even the concept. Now, this meant a lot to us. We used to get together, we used to discuss, and we were searching as to what could be painting, what could be art. We were very much interested in modern art, of course, and we were also passionately interested in our traditional art. We were studying both. I remember a very important exhibition which was presented at Wellington House in London and then in Delhi, which we all visited in 48, 49 in Delhi. So the search was, the problem was to find out what is our own culture and study it. You should know it. One thinks that one knows, but one never knows enough. What is Mohenjo-daro? What is Elephanta, Ellora, Ajanta? What is Indian Jain Rajput miniatures? What is the philosophy? And all this we were studying very seriously. They were very intelligent people. I was one of the most naive and simple, coming from a small town in Madhya Pradesh, and I was no, I would say the first village where I was born, Babaria in Narsinghpur district, and after that Mandla, which is origin of Narmada river at Amarkantak, and we lived in forest and villages. So you see, the whole thing was, I was like a Adivasi from central India. And I was there with Dr. Mulkrajanan and literated people and communists and Karl Marx literature and Das Kapital and all that, and I was opening eye. It was very fascinating. It was very well. And that's where I say that, well, this was the beginning. Apart from the Calcutta School, Renaissance of Art in Bengal, Bombay took up the lead then, and I have lived it those 9 years with passion. We got together, and I think the birds of the same feather flocked together. We met each other, Hussain, Ram Kumar Gaitonde, Akbar Padam Sita, Mehta, and all. We got together at that time, and we discussed with each other, questioned each other, and we were searching in what is modern art and what is traditional Indian art.
Let's go slightly back in time. You said that you spent your early childhood in the forests of Madhya Pradesh, and the places you mentioned are some of the most beautiful and picturesque places. As a child, when you will walk in those lovely forests around Narmada, what was the did you ever think that you will be a painter one day, taking inspiration from these lovely places?
No, I didn't think that that I would become a painter one day. But what I remember very well, that these forests were beautiful. I was born 30 kilometers south of Narmada in Babaria in Narsinghpur district, and we lived in Mandla. We could see Narmada from the range quarters where we lived. My father was a forest range officer in charge of those beautiful forests which are between Satpura and Vindhyachal, around the district of Mandla. And he was in charge of Kanakisli, and I tell you, these villages, Kakaiya and Babaria and many others, are so beautiful. I was fascinated by that. I never thought that I would become a painter, but I wanted to bring them on my piece of paper in pencil or color, which I tried to do even in the early days. And intrinsically, I have a feeling that this beautiful nature around me, not only with trees and mango trees, imli trees and many others, flowers, but birds and animals. We had a camel in the house, we had an elephant, we had sometimes a tiger coming into the village. So there was a mixture of beauty, happiness, and also fear. Now this experience of childhood remains in me. It has remained all the time, and it remains in me. And the beauty of the forest, beauty of nature, I think was at the origin which led me towards more and more art expression, painting nature, so much so that the landscape, as we call it in English, became for me the main subject of Srishti, Prakriti, became the main subject of work as I developed in my painting. Now they call it landscape. In our mode of thinking, we call it Srishti or Prakriti, which is a higher elevation, but maybe we come to that later. I could see the Narmada River from the house. We could admire the plants in the garden, in the corner. My father was in charge of the forest of Kanakisli, which is a national park, and several others forests in Mandla, Dindori and Nivas, the 3 districts. Now, you see, we were living our childhood, we were living it happily. We had wonderful parents, and for my happiness and my luck, I had most extraordinary teachers right from the primary schools in Kakaiya, Babaria, Mandla, who were Brahmins of the highest order. And they gave, yes, Beni Prasad ji Stapak, Nandlal ji Jharia, Gauri Shankar ji Lahiri. I remember their names with gratitude. I have gone and seen them after that, even after when I came to Bombay or to France. And I have mentioned these names with the most important, I think, was in the beginning, in the village of Kakaya, where father was posted for a while. And that was Sri Nandalal Ji Jharia. I was a very bad student, not good at studies, and father requested Nandalji to give me special attention, which he did. And one day after the school, when most of the students had gone, he asked me to sit down in the veranda of the school, took a pencil, and on the white wall of the veranda, he drew a point. And he said, "Beta, डरो मत, यहाँ बैठ जाओ, डरो नहीं, भूल जाओ सब, forget everything, just look at this bindu. I'm just coming after some time." He went inside, washed, changed, and came up and said, "हाँ, ठीक है, now you go home and come for studies. Private lessons your father asked me to give after dinner." And we used to go to his house about 7 o'clock after dinner. I and my elder brother, we were together in the same school. And he would give us private lessons with great fascination, play, sense of humor, and I got really interested in the studies. Now, I never realized that this drawing a point on the wall was one of the first most important exercise of discipline for me. What happened originated from this incident, a very important chapter of my life. I started to fix my mind on the studies. It was not only Bindu, it was what the teacher was saying, what the studies were. He would know that I like play, so he said, "पहाड़ा तो मैं नहीं आता, 15 का पहाड़ा सुन, 15 एक कम 15 दूनी 30 तिया 45 9 60 पना 75 छक्के 90 7 75 8 20 9 30 धूम धड़का 150." You see, he brought play into the games, and my mind went there. He told father he's not stupid. He says only his mind is wandering, and we have to bring his mind to the studies. And you see, my life changed. I started studying. I started taking interest in the thing. I became one of the good students, and I must say my brother, who was the best student of the school, I scored more marks in matriculation examination than even my own brother. And then, knowing that I was interested in painting, my drawing teacher at Damoh, we went to Damoh afterwards, in Sagar district, and he told my father that Haider is very talented in drawing. I wish he could go to Shantiniketan or to Sajay School of Art for studies. And ultimately, first I came to Nagpur and then to. Now, you see, the effect of this childhood were not only this incident which concerns me, but the beauty of the forest. The Gond tribes, the dance which we used to see without knowing what it is all about. A row of men and women walking with fire in the center. Music of Adivasis. Warrior Alvin, one great anthropologist, English, who was living in that area. My father knew him. And consciously or unconsciously, an interest in these things grew, and which has lived all through my life. I have the conviction that the first 10 years of your life mark the entire life, and it did, with the most beautiful river in India, Narmada, starting at Amarkantak, between Satpura and Vindhyachal, and flowing in front of us for 13 years of our life.
And in 1950 from Bombay, you came to Paris. How did Paris change the artist within you?
Well, I would say that I was very much interested in French modern art. I think it was the best that I could know in relation to European, German, Italian, English or American modern art. I wanted to see original works of Cezanne, Gunga, Van Gogh and others, and international art which is available in Paris. it changed my whole way of looking at painting. It gave me understand what Clive Bell said and what the French know much better than anyone else. The French artists of the 18th and 19th and 20th century have marked our world movement of contemporary art, and is still very, very important. I realized that these values were very important, that I have to learn first the language of painting, by which I mean one should know how to coordinate lines, shapes, forms and colors in a picture space. And believe me, it's not a simple thing. I needed 25 years to gain a mastery on the language of painting, working very hard. 25 years, that is in 1975, when my work was very appreciated all over in Europe. I was showing not only in France, but beyond the Venice and America, Canada and so on. I had the Prix de la Critique, which put me out of problems of material problems, and my works were being acquired and exhibited. I was not satisfied. 75, I told myself, but where are you, Raza, in your work? Where is the concept of Indian art? Where is your childhood? Where is Narmadaji? Where is the music of Adivasis, the local language? Where is innumerable things that come to you from Bhagavad Gita, from Ramayana, from Quran, and many other sources which were important to you in the childhood?
We'll talk about 1970, your journey back to India slightly later, but how important was this Prix de la Critique?
Well, Prix de la Critique was extremely important to me because I had the scholarship from 1950 to 53 in Paris. I was a student of École Nationale des Beaux-Arts, and after 53 I had neither the resources nor money nor the scholarship. So it was a very, very difficult period. I was giving lessons of Hindi and to make some money to pay my expenses by paints, but I was working all the time, and I made it. 6 years of very hard work. I was shown in a gallery in Rue de Seine in Paris that was observed by art critics. 14 of them chose me for Prix de la Critique with 18 other French and foreign artists. 4 months later, they all, with majority, decided to give me the Prix de la Critique. I tell you, I was famous overnight. The entire press, Figaro, Le Monde, Information, even American painters' pictures and magazines from London also, Belgium, Holland, Germany, they published, and I was overnight famous out of worries, financial worries, showing everywhere, selling my pictures, and a new life started. You see, the thing is that in art, my conviction is based on observation, of course, is the more a painter is original, less he is recognized in the beginning. Only specialists can see it if they are sincere, if they are art lovers, and these 14 art critics, of which Claude Roger Marx, one of the directors of Museum of Modern Art, was a member, chose and gave the first foreign artist Prix de la Critique, which was a very coveted award. It changed my life, my material life, if you say. And I would say that, well, I would not give too great an importance to them. Even then, I worked day and night for 6 months, and an important exhibition of my individual exhibition was presented at the Galerie Saint Placide, which imposed my work as a serious contribution to École de Paris, and a new life started.
So you mastered the technique in Paris, but the vision was still India. India was somehow still calling you back.
I would put it this way, that India was always present, because even then I thought Bhav, the painting, should be invested with sentiments which we call Pran Pratishtha, the life soul in a painting, as in a statue. There must be a soul in the painting. That I had. But I must say that I was very much influenced by Cezanne and French art. And as such, my concept was of École de Paris, let's face it. During the year 1956 and till 70. And it is between 70 and 75 I started realizing that something is missing, that I cannot be satisfied by becoming a part of École de Paris. There are about 1,000 artists from all over the world, including the French and foreign, who were doing this. And I tell you, in 75, realizing this fully, I started visiting India for a longer period every year for 2-3 months to study what is Indian philosophy, to look at ancient art. I went to Ellora, Elephanta, Ajanta. I went to museums. I read books. I studied once again Hindi poetry. I attended dance and music, and I thought what can be done. And then I came to the conclusion, visiting Bavaria, my birthplace, and Kakaya, where Nandaji Jharya drew that this Bindu is one of the seed symbol in Indian aesthetics. Bindu for the visual arts is the same as Om for music. Bindu is the seed symbol of the painters, sculptors, architects, the space. And sound is important for musicians, both vocal and instrumental, and even also the dance. And all this are linked up. Now, I came back, and it took me 2-3 years to realize what can I do with the seed symbol, how to see that concentrated energy, Shakti, in a seed, as in a sperm, let's face it, is responsible for a new life. That there are two polarities, Purush, Prakriti. Now these were very fascinating things, you see, which I started discovering, but how to use it as a painter. And it took me 5 years. In 1980, I did the first paintings on the theme of Bindu. First a black circle with light in the four corners, and then I added the Panch Tattva, 5 elements, Chiti, Jala, Pavak, Gagan, Samira. Now these are things which are not known to many Europeans except specialists who go in for Indian thought. None of the very few painters were initiated into it, but I started working on it, and I found out that the concept of Panchatat, which in Indian thought exists in relation to this Prakriti, this world of ours, earth, water, fire, air and sky. It exists in paintings in 5 colors: black, red, blue, yellow and white. I thought that it's just marvelous that in my world of a painter there are also Panchatat, which are the 5 colors. And I wedded them together, worked on it, and in summer of 1980 I did the first paintings, one with the slumbering Panchatat and the other fully awake, coming to black, white, yellow, red and blue. And these paintings were appreciated by a Swiss collector immediately the same summer and were acquired. And there were other friends of mine who thought that I was getting nuts, that I was getting crazy, that I have been doing such marvelous work in the gestual style of École de Paris, and now I'm coming to a circle, what the hell it's all about. But I feel that one should never be troubled by averse criticism. More you take a daring, important decision, less it is appreciated in the beginning, and I continued. And I tell you, I have been working the last 25 years on Bindu and the Panchatat with all immense variety of manifestation, where from darkness to light, from black Bindu to the Panchatat, 5 colors Bindu, it's all. And the latest example you see at the Tate Britain today, which I have called Jagrati, showing the Mooldhara, the 7 colors in the development of one's personality, coming from darkness to light, of the Kundalini, which is designed in the canvas, which is shown yesterday at the Tate Britain.
That's very interesting. I could never imagine those Bindu in the form of Panch Tattva and Jagrati. Now, tell me, when you said that one should never be afraid of adverse criticism, what is the worst criticism you ever encountered?
No, well, there have been innumerable criticism which I have met, but I couldn't say what was the worst because I don't give great importance to them. I have a feeling that at times when my French influence was great, criticism was less. When I came to Indian sources, there were many other criticisms, even coming from India, which were rather painful. Because first of all, I attained certain maturity and certain understanding of the technique and the values in art, and the misunderstanding seems to be rather painful. But I think we should neither give importance to compliments nor...
What would they say when they criticize?
Well, they say that, anyone can do a circle. Anyone can put 5 colors. What is big about it? They don't realize the simplest things are the most difficult things to say. You see, when I'm even talking to you, I can mess up ideas. I can say simple things in simple way. As Van der Rohe has said, the American architect, less is more. When you talk, say a few things and be precise. In painting, paint. Make a pictorial statement which should be significant and simple. And simple things are the most difficult. Now, painful thing for me is that people don't even look sufficiently at the work of a painter like Gaitonde, let me tell, or Manish or Sujata, and they pass remarks. This is painful.
Some people believe that there's tantric influence on your paintings.
Well, you see, there has been in India a neo-tantric movement, which has been generally influenced by tantric yantras and Indian thought. And this movement, on the whole, to my understanding, has been on the surface. They haven't gone deep into it. That's why I always was reluctant to associate myself to this neo-tantric movement. Now, I don't deny the fact that tantric yantras, Indian thought, Indian miniatures, and innumerable diagrams and ideas have been a very important influence on me. And that, well, there are things which are accompanying. But my effort has been, and this is the most important thing that I would like to say, is that when you draw either from French art or European art, or Byzantine art or Indian art, tantric or any other sources, Jain miniatures, Rajput miniatures, you have to make it so that you assimilate the principles of the creativity. You make it a part of your system and you come out with something personal and your own. You see, the metamorphosis could take a different form, and this is the creativity of the artist concerned. But if he copies Rajput painting or Jain miniatures or tantric yantras and doesn't bring a personal contribution, the artist is not creative.
Now, you mentioned Ellora and Ajanta a couple of times in this conversation, and the way you see Ajanta paintings must be different than millions of people who go there see. How would you describe those paintings?
Well, I would say that, well, these paintings have been a very great influence in my way of thinking, which brought me to think that the study of anatomy and perspective that we were doing under the British influence was erroneous, that our concept of two dimension in painting was a great thing, that Ajanta or Rajput or Indian miniatures are of a different conception. It is not the perspective anatomy that matters, it is the idea, it is the vision of the third eye which is more important. And this, I tell you, helped me to come out of the influences of world seen by the retina to world imagined by the third eye. It is not easy to understand, but the third eye is not a third retina in the center, but it is a whole complex, imaginative organisms, a very complex thing which an artist develops, a poet develops with the course of time, which is difficult to define, but which is the reality and to which one has to come. Now, if one comes to that reality, as I think Gaitonde has come, as I think Jamni Roy has come, as I think Daya Mehta or many other artists have been able to come, well, it is something which is beyond reasoning and beyond what is perceived by the retina. But there at the art school, we were supposed to draw after the Greek and Roman statues. We were supposed to draw as the perspective perceived by the eyes have seen, which is very different in Indian thought. And Ellora and Ajanta, and not only that, Kalighat paintings, or let's say the museum in Ahmedabad of textile and many other things, or dance, bring me to think that there's a different reality to which we should go according to the Indian genius of imagination and perception.
Now, how spiritual or how religious are you?
Well, I would say that religion is a very, very important part of my life. My perception of things, both in art and in life. I was born in a Muslim family. My teachers were Brahmins. In France, I was married to a Christian girl, also a painter, and I'm dedicated to all the three religions that I have known. I once left my religion. I go to a Ganesh temple or a Shiva temple in a very modest and meditative, concentrated manner. I can pray there. I go to a church. I have great esteem for Christ and Christianity. My wife, who was a Christian, was not going to the church. I was going every Sunday to the Mass. I feel that religion is important, but one has to discover with time, which I did. I took 50 years or more to find the common denominator in religion, to be able to do my namaz at Jummah Masjid in Delhi with total sincerity, and to pray in a Ganesh temple, Siddhivinayak in Mumbai, where I go every time I'm in Bombay. And then, as I just said, I'm going to the church now, even now, every Sunday after my wife's demise 3-4 years back. I feel that I have a very great satisfaction in going to church, a vote of thanksgiving, prayer, concentration, and at times legitimate demands too. It brings me great satisfaction. And if I may link it up with my work, innumerable paintings of mine are aspirations for the sacred, for the divine. Even in this painting, Jagriti, the lower portion is black blues. The Nagas Kundalinis are dormant and at times lightening up. And the upper line after the 7 points of chakra go towards light, towards God. I think it is very, very important that one understand these things and practices them in life, I have tried to do it, as also in art.
Who were the personalities that influenced you, your heroes? In art and non-art.
Well, I would say that first of all, they were my teachers in the beginning of Madhya Pradesh. Sri Ayavasi ji, who was one of the teachers from Benares at the JJ School of Art. And in Bombay, I had most extraordinary friends in Souza, Hussain, Ara, Bakri, Krishnan, Padamsi Mehta, and many others. I met in 48 in Srinagar the photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson, and this photographer, whose name I had known, I met for the first time. He saw my paintings, which were shown in Srinagar in an exhibition, and he told me that you are very talented, but I am very skeptical about talented young artists. I said, what? He explained himself, and he said, look, you want to listen to me? I said, yes. He said that, look, you are a talented painter, you have a good sense of form, color, and composition, but your paintings lack construction. I didn't understand a thing. I said, what do you mean? He said that a painting is like a building. It is constructed on a foundation with walls and beams, a structure, roof. Otherwise it falls. A painting is the same thing. Think it over. I couldn't understand a thing. Now, I was a naive young man, you see. I was trying to learn, but I was attentive. I worked with passion. I was attentive to Cartier-Bresson. I said, please explain to me. I'm very much interested. He said, once again, what construction is. And in the end, he told me, if you have reproductions of Paul Cézanne, study Paul Cézanne. You will see his paintings are constructed. So I thanked him. I have known other art lovers, particularly Mr. Emanuel Schlesinger, who is from Vienna, and Walter Langhammer, again from Vienna, and Rudi von Leyden, and Homi Bhabha, and many others who had books on Cézanne. I saw, regarded, thought about it, worked. And I said that the best is that I see the originals in Paris, and that's well. So now, you see, Schlesinger, Walter Langhammer, Dr. Homi Bhabha, Cartier-Bresson, and over here I met innumerable young painters, critics in France, who were peaks of my sense of direction, like Jacques Lassaigne, who later was, first he was an art critic only, became the director of Museum of Modern Art in Paris, and he was a good friend of mine, bought my paintings and influenced me. And I have a feeling that ultimately it is the French landscape, which was an ecstasy for me. I travel from Alsace to Brittany and to Normandy, and to Carcassonne, Bordeaux, central part of France, Alsace, central France and south of France, and ultimately we fixed off. I was married already. We decided to have a summer residence in south of France near Nice, Menton, because the climate was hotter. I'm very afraid of cold.
May I talk about your wife and how did you meet the girl?
Yes, it was. I would say start from the very beginning. I was married very young in India, and unfortunately, the marriage was a flop, an error. We couldn't get along well together, and in a few years' time, we had to decide to separate. Now I take life very seriously, so I gave ourselves a time, but it didn't work out, and 15 years later we had to separate. In France, when I entered the art school, Janine Mongila, another student, came in the same studio in 1950. And she was charming, very talented, intelligent, and of course I was married and I avoided her. But it kept on. Life was working the way it was. I had decided to divorce, and I took time to get the divorce. And ultimately, in 56, when I got the prix de la critique and I could make my living, 57 I proposed to her if she would share my life, and 59 we got married after my divorce. Now, Jeanine Mangila was born in Paris, studied art, was doing very good painting, and she also appreciated what I was doing. So we got together, we had a wonderful, let's say, start and life after our marriage, with understanding of each other, sharing the same values, liking the same painters more or less. I had to study her religion. As I feel you don't marry only a woman with her physical being. You have to understand her mind. You have to understand her background, her culture, and also her religion. And since I was profoundly very religious, I wanted to know what Christianity was. So I went to priests. I went to Jean Duchesne, a friend of mine who was editor of Communion, a Christian magazine, to know what Christianity is, what is Alleluia, and many other things of Christian thought. And I started going to the church and tried to understand. I wrote to Pope asking for a benediction from him. But there was nothing doing. I had to be baptized, without which no priest would give me his benediction. So I said, "Kam se kam, give me the blessings." Anyway, we had extraordinary association. I feel that Jeanine has been very helpful and understanding with me and with my work and with my temperament. And I would say that she was equally dedicated to her work and was working very, very seriously. Now, the only thing was that at times her work was not very much appreciated. But we showed in the same museums, we showed in the same galleries, and we showed with Picasso and Françoise Gillot in Aix-en-Provence, in an exhibition of a couple artists. And there are documents, and at the moment I'm trying to do a museum in south of France, in the city of Menton, with which Jean-Claude Guibal, the mayor of Menton, is very enthusiastic, has given us a piece of land in the Musée Palais Garnales, where there would be hopefully the first museum of an Indian artist in France, called Musée Raza Mangila. But this is not yet realized. I hope it will be.
I'm sure it will be, and Raza Sahab, we will see many, many more years of creativity and pleasure that you have given to us and everybody around. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm glad you could come.